If you don't have money, we don't need you, my dad said while tossing my suitcase outside. Then don't expect a penny of the $3.7 million Grandpa left me, I replied. They abandoned me when I was broke. Now I'm rich, and they're begging at my door. I can clearly recall the moment my mom and dad told me I had no value without money. That memory is stuck in my head like a deep wound. I had just returned from another long, tiring job interview. I had been applying everywhere for weeks, visiting office after office, giving handshakes, forcing fake smiles until my cheeks hurt, just to keep hearing the usual replies. We'll let you know, or we chose someone with more experience. It felt like I was trapped in a bad dream I couldn't escape. When I moved back in with my parents a few months earlier, I believed they'd get it. I thought it would just be a short stay, a place to rest while I got back on track. At first, they acted fine with it. They said things like, "Don't worry, Henry, you'll land something soon. We've been through this, too." I really believed them. But slowly, their attitudes changed. I could tell they were getting tired of me. At the beginning, it was small digs like, "Still jobless, huh?" Or, "What exactly do you do all day, Henry?" Then they started comparing me to my brother George. To them, George was the star. In their eyes, he was perfect. He had a steady job in engineering, a house, a wife, and a kid. Meanwhile, I was the embarrassment, sleeping on their sofa. The final straw came when I told them I had no savings left. Not even the little rent I was giving them every month. That night, after another failed interview, I came back home completely drained. I hoped we'd talk. Maybe they'd give me advice or at least encourage me to keep going. But instead, they had already packed my belongings. My suitcase was sitting by the door. Dad stood beside it with his arms folded, waiting for me to notice. When I finally saw it, he said in a cold, emotionless tone, "Your stuff's there. If you don't have money, we don't need you." I paused. "What?" "You heard me," he replied, not even bothering to explain again. "We've helped all we can." Mom came into the room, drying her hands on a dish towel like she had just finished cleaning. "Henry, we have our own lives now. We can't keep carrying you. Your brother never needed us like this." And there it was, George again. I was so sick of hearing about him. It felt like everything he did right made me look worse. I gritted my teeth and tried to stay calm. "So, you're kicking me out just because I can't pay you rent?" "Don't be so dramatic," Mom said. "You're an adult. It's your job to figure this out. We're not running a charity." I stood there in disbelief. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to support me no matter what. I'd never felt so unwanted. "Wow," I whispered, shaking my head. "You'd really throw out your own son." Dad rolled his eyes. "Don't make us feel guilty. We've already done more than enough. Maybe this will finally wake you up. You've been sitting around too long." That was it for me. I didn't argue. I grabbed my luggage, stepped outside, and didn't look back. The cold air hit my face as I stood there, unsure what to do. I had no home, no job, no cash, just me and a suitcase. And the harsh truth that I was really alone. I stayed on the porch for a while, trying to think of someone I could call. Most of my friends lived far away or were struggling, too. George came to mind, but I wasn't sure. We were never that close. He's 5 years older, and he was always the smart one. I'd lost count of how many times my parents used his success to put me down. I didn't want to be more of a problem in his life. He had his own family and work to deal with. Why would he want me around? Still, I didn't have better choices. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. It was after 10 p.m., but I hit call anyway. "Henry," George sounded surprised. He clearly didn't expect to hear from me so late. "Hey, I really need your help," I said, hating how helpless I sounded. I explained what happened, skipping over some of the worst parts. But he picked up on the situation fast. "They threw you out?" George said, sounding shocked. "You're serious?" "Yeah, they told me I wasn't needed without money. They packed everything while I was out." There was a long silence. Then at last, he said, "Wow, I always knew they were strict with you, but this is just wrong. Listen, come stay here for now. You can stay as long as you need." The tight feeling in my chest loosened a bit. "Thanks, man, I really mean it. Don't even mention it. Just get here safely, all right?" I headed to George's home, which was about a 40-minute ride by bus. When I arrived, he was already outside, standing there in sweatpants and a hoodie. Even though the weather was freezing. He took my suitcase from me and led me inside. His wife, Barbara, was relaxing in the living room, bundled up under a blanket. She sat up when she saw me. "Henry," she said softly. "George told me what happened." "That's awful. I'm really sorry." I nodded awkwardly, not used to people showing me kindness like that. Over the next few weeks, both George and Barbara helped me more than I ever thought they would. George worked on my resume with me. And even called a few people he knew at his job to see if they had any open positions. He didn't just give me a couch to sleep on. He gave me a real shot at putting my life back together. But then something surprising happened. About 2 weeks after I moved in, George had a huge argument with our parents. I didn't hear it myself, but George later explained everything. Apparently, Dad had phoned him just to complain about me. He said something like, "We gave Henry more than enough chances. He's lazy and full of himself. Glad you're showing him how life really works." George wasn't having it. He told them straight up that they were heartless for leaving me out in the cold. He said I wasn't the failure they believed I was. He explained that I was trying hard to change things. And that they should be ashamed for treating me so badly. They didn't take it well. George told me, but honestly, I couldn't care less. Someone had to say it. I couldn't believe it. George had always seemed distant, like he didn't get involved in anything emotional. But here he was, standing up for me in a way I never imagined. That moment changed something inside me. It wasn't just about getting back on my feet anymore. I wanted to show myself, and maybe even him, that I was worth more than what my parents thought. I wasn't going to let their opinions define me. Living with George showed me things I hadn't seen before. He wasn't perfect, not even close. I used to think he had it all under control, but now I saw how hard things were for him. He was balancing his job, parenting his little boy, Benjamin, and trying to spend time with Barbara. He was always running around, barely able to catch his breath. Watching him struggle made me understand how much he was doing for me, too. Letting me stay with them wasn't easy. It was a big deal. Quietly, I promised myself that I would pay him back somehow, no matter what. Then, about 3 weeks after moving in, something strange happened. My dad called. I almost ignored it, but I got curious and picked up. "Hello," I said, unsure. "Henry," he started, using a voice that sounded way too cheerful. Like he was trying to act like nothing bad ever happened. "How have you been?" I didn't trust him at all. "What do you want?" "Don't be like that," he said. "I just wanted to see how you're doing. I know things got a bit heated, but your mom and I were just trying to help you." I almost burst out laughing. "Help? You kicked me out without warning just because I couldn't pay rent." He went quiet for a few seconds. "Well, maybe we were a little too harsh. We were thinking maybe you could stop by sometime for dinner, just to catch up." I didn't know what kind of game he was trying to play, but I wasn't having it. "No thanks," I said, and hung up. The next day, George pulled me aside. "Mom and Dad called this morning," he told me. "They said you hung up on Dad. Now they're acting all strange, like they're trying to fix their image or something. I think it's because I went off on them." That wasn't the only odd thing that week. A few days later, Barbara's cousin offered me a job at the marketing company where he worked. It wasn't anything fancy, but it paid enough for me to clear my debts and start saving a bit. It felt like a small win, but I wanted more. I didn't want to just survive anymore. Then came the real twist. George's old boss, who now worked at a big company in Chicago, got in touch with me. Apparently, George had talked me up to him. I got an interview scheduled for a marketing strategist job. That paid 3 times more than anything I'd earned before. The wildest part, I hadn't even applied. "Why'd you do that?" I asked George after he told me. He shrugged. "I know how tough life can get. Sometimes you just need someone to believe in you. Besides, you've been working your butt off. You've earned a chance." I never thought I'd actually get that job, but somehow I did. That moment marked the start of real change in my life. In just 5 months, I went from having no income or work to earning enough to afford my own apartment. Right after New Year's 2024, I packed up and moved out of George's place. But I still stayed in close touch with him and his family. I owed him more than I could ever repay, and I wasn't going to forget that. Of course, that's exactly when my parents showed up again. At first, it was messages from Mom. "We're so proud of you, Henry. Let's catch up soon." Then came another one. "We heard about your new job. That's fantastic. We can't wait to see you." I didn't answer any of them. Then Dad started calling, leaving voicemails that made me cringe. He started talking about how families should always stick together and support each other. He even hinted they needed help with some so-called tiny money problem. Tiny problem. Yeah, right. When George heard about it, he rolled his eyes. "They haven't changed," he said. "Don't fall for their guilt trips. You don't owe them anything." Even so, part of me wondered, maybe they actually meant it this time. Maybe they had learned something. So, I agreed to meet them at a coffee place just to hear them out. I got there early and found a seat near the window. When they walked in, both were all smiles, pretending like we were still one happy family. But I wasn't fooled. Once the small talk ended, I folded my arms and said, "All right, what is it that you really want?" Mom shifted in her chair, clearly nervous. "Well, your father and I are having some issues with money, the house payments." I cut her off right there. I knew it. "You're not here because you care. You just want money? They looked shocked. That's not fair, Henry, Dad replied. We're family. Families support each other. Oh, really? I snapped. Because you didn't think that when I was sleeping on the couch with no job. You told me to leave and figure things out myself. But now that you need help, suddenly I'm your son again. They tried to defend themselves, but I didn't let them speak. I'm not your wallet, I said firmly. If you want a relationship with me, it can't be about money. Do you understand? They nodded. But I wasn't sure they meant it. And that's where things are now. Since then, they've been trying to act kind. But deep down, I still feel like they'll go back to using me if I give them the chance. George thinks I should give them a shot, but I've set clear lines. I'm not letting them hurt me again. After that awkward meeting, I didn't hear anything from them for weeks. It was kind of peaceful. For once, I could put all my focus into work and life without them pretending to care. I kept pushing forward. Work was going great. I was learning fast, making good contacts. And even got praised for leading a project that brought in a new client. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. But the peace didn't last long. One afternoon, my phone rang. The number wasn't saved. I almost let it go, but something told me to answer. Henry, it was Mom. Her voice sounded shaky, like she'd been crying. What's wrong? I asked, already bracing for bad news. It's your dad, she said, sniffling. He had a small heart attack. He's at the hospital. I didn't know how to react. A part of me felt bad for not jumping up to go see him. But another part remembered all the times they turned their backs on me when I was struggling. Still, this wasn't something I could ignore. I sighed. Which hospital? When I arrived, I saw Mom in the waiting area. She looked pale and tired. When she saw me, there was a flash of real relief on her face. He's stable, she said softly. But they're going to keep him overnight to be sure everything's okay. I gave her a small nod and sat beside her. We didn't say much. It felt awkward, like both of us were scared to bring up the past. After a while, she finally spoke. I know we hurt you, she said quietly. We should have been there when you needed us most. I don't expect you to forgive us, but I wanted you to know we're sorry. I stared at her, trying to figure out if she was being honest or just trying to get something again. But this time, it didn't feel fake. Maybe nearly losing Dad had shaken her. Maybe, just maybe, they were starting to see what they'd done wrong. Still, I wasn't ready to trust them completely. We'll see, I replied, keeping my voice calm. What matters is what you do next, not what you say. She nodded slowly, like she understood. Later that evening, George gave me a call. Mom sent me a message about Dad. Are you okay? Yeah, I told him. I went to see him at the hospital. He's all right. That's good to hear, he said. Look, I get that they've been a real headache, but don't let this situation suck you back into their mess. Be smart about it. I know, I said. I'm staying cautious. In the weeks that followed, I stayed away, but I did check in on Dad occasionally. He started acting more polite, and there were moments where it seemed like he wanted to reconnect. He didn't bring up anything about cash, which was a huge relief. Still, I had this uneasy feeling that they were only acting nice because they thought they might need me again soon. Then something unexpected happened. One day, my phone rang. It was Barbara. Hey, she said, just wanted to tell you, your parents came over to George's house today. Didn't go well. What are you talking about? I asked. They showed up without warning and asked George to convince you to help them with money. George told them to leave, and it got intense. I let out a sigh. Seriously, they couldn't even wait a few more months before doing this again. George was really mad, Barbara said. He told me that if they keep doing things like this, he's going to cut them off completely. I didn't want it to reach that point. Even though they'd hurt me badly, I didn't want to be the reason the family split apart. But I also wasn't going to let them keep using me. George was right. I needed to hold the line. That evening, I messaged my parents. Don't drag George or Barbara into your problems. If you have something to say, come to me. But if you ask for money again, I'm walking away for good. They didn't answer right away. But the next day, Dad sent a short reply. Got it. It wasn't a lot, but it meant something. For a while after that, things were actually calm. My parents stopped bothering George. And when I checked in, they didn't bring up money anymore. It seemed like they were finally starting to understand. I started to think that maybe, just maybe, we could have a normal relationship. One without the pressure and guilt from before. But life had other plans. In late March, I got an email from a law office. At first, I assumed it was junk, but the subject line caught my attention. Philip Hamilton's estate, immediate attention. Philip Hamilton, my grandfather. I hadn't seen him in a very long time. Not since I was a kid. He was my dad's father and was always kind of distant. He lived far out in the countryside in Ohio and rarely came around. But people always said he was tough and good at business. I opened the email and saw that he had passed away. But what shocked me most was the next line. You are named as one of the main heirs. I read that sentence over and over again. I couldn't believe it. Why would Grandpa leave anything to me? We were practically strangers. I called the lawyer the next morning. He told me my grandfather had left a large inheritance, but there were rules. I had to attend the will reading in person, and more details would be shared then. I didn't know how to feel. I hadn't even processed that Grandpa was gone, and now I was being told I might inherit something. It didn't seem real. I told George about it first. Wait, Grandpa left something for you? He asked, sounding completely surprised. He never said anything about this to me. Heck, Dad hardly even talked about him. I know, it's weird, I said. But the lawyer says I need to be there when they read the will. You going to tell Mom and Dad? He asked. I paused. I could already picture the reaction. Dad saying something like, we're family, we should all get a piece of that. No, I said. Not yet. Not until I understand what's really going on. Good call, George replied. Let me know what happens. A few days later, I flew to Ohio. The lawyer's office was in a small, quiet town. The whole experience felt like something from a movie. Only a handful of people showed up, mostly distant relatives I didn't recognize at all. The attorney brought us into a small meeting room and went through some basic legal steps before reaching the key announcement. Philip Hamilton has listed a few people in his will, he explained. But the majority of his wealth, around $3.7 million in total, is being given to his grandson, Henry Hamilton. The whole room froze. I could feel eyes from all directions staring right at me. Huh? I said quietly, completely shocked. The lawyer continued. There's one important rule with this inheritance. You must not be influenced, convinced, or pressured to share any of the assets with anyone, including close relatives. If this rule is broken, everything will go to a charity instead. My chest was pounding. I had just become a millionaire, but with a condition. Grandpa clearly expected trouble from my parents or other relatives. And he made sure I'd be protected from them even after he passed away. I hadn't even left the building yet when my phone started ringing nonstop. Word had already gotten out somehow. I received calls and messages from extended family I hadn't spoken to in years. They all said congratulations but kept dropping hints about business plans or financial ideas. I didn't reply to any of them. Then the phone rang again. It was Dad. Henry, he said, trying to sound calm. I just heard the news about the will. This is huge for all of us. There's no us, I replied firmly. It's mine, and there are legal rules. I can't give you anything. Even if I wanted to, I'm not allowed. What are you talking about? He snapped. We're your parents. You wouldn't have anything if it weren't for us raising you. I let out a cold laugh. You mean the same people who kicked me out when I had no job and no money? Don't act like you cared then. He started to talk again, but I cut him off. I've said enough. I'm not doing this. I'm not your source of money. Goodbye. I ended the call and blocked his number. I thought that would be the last of it. I was wrong. A few days later, George called, and he was furious. Henry, he said, Dad came to my house. He's furious about the inheritance. He wants me to convince you to change your mind. He's completely losing it. He's not going to let this go, is he? I muttered. Nope, George replied. But I told him that if he keeps bothering either of us, I'll take legal action. He wasn't exaggerating. Dad kept trying to push through. He even sent a message through one of my cousins saying, family comes first, even before rules written in a will. It was ridiculous. I didn't bother answering. Then something different happened. Mom reached out, but not asking for anything. She sent a long email. It was emotional. She said she was sorry for how they treated me. She admitted their mistakes and said they weren't reaching out for money, just for a chance to make things right. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I showed the message to George. What do you think? I asked. It's tough to tell, he said. Could be real guilt, or it could be Dad using her as a new plan. Either way, you're the one in charge now. Take your time. He was right. I responded to her message with firm boundaries. No talk about money, no pressure, no lies. If you cross any of those lines, I'm walking away forever. To my surprise, she agreed. The months that followed were awkward, but calm. Dad backed off a bit, even if he didn't like it. Mom was polite and didn't cross the line. I still didn't fully trust them, but I could tell something was different. Maybe when they realized they couldn't control me anymore, it finally hit them what they'd lost. Now, it's the start of 2025. I just came back from celebrating New Year's in the mountains of Europe with my girlfriend. Life is better than I ever thought it could be. I have my own place, a career I actually enjoy. And people like George who've stood by me no matter what. As for my parents, I'm still watching. Maybe they're trying to change, maybe not. But I've learned how to protect myself. I'll give them a chance, but only by my rules. I'm in charge now, and no amount of cash will ever change that.